started. We're going to do a round of introductions. I'm Souki. I'm going to be your tour guide on this ride of a panel. Buckle up. I'm the commercial director and creative consultant for teams who want to integrate new technology like AI into their workflows. I help, it feels really nice to feel the breeze and breeze nice. I work with industry leaders to embrace new tools, to escalate their tech literacy. Welcome everyone, come on in. And help people harness the best of their humanity while they upscale their creative projects, their brands to, the next level. You can think of me as your friendly neighborhood tech Sherpa, and I'm going to be bringing us to a whole new world of diversity and equity and AI. Our panelists and the main stars of the show. We've got Kerry Benson, Kerry Benson, that's you, North American Creative Solutions Lead for Kantar. We've got Solange Claudio, president of formerly known as. We're sort of going to go through and maybe have them introduce themselves.
You got to my name and you weren't sure how to say it.
Do you feel me sweating up here? I was like,
Saw you. That was nice.
It happens to me too. Everyone looks at my name and they're like, oh God. Want to introduce yourself?
Pamala, Buzick, Kim. I'm the executive director of the nonprofit Free the Work.
Somebody messed up.
And I'm Mike Dobell, Chief Innovation Officer at Jam3 Media.Monks.
Everybody give a round of applause to our... That's so exciting. Okay, so I could make them sit awkwardly while I read their bios, but we've all been there, and I'm not going to make you do that. So we're going to go out there, have them introduce themselves, talk a little bit about themselves before we get into the questions. I'm very excited for you to know just how intimidated you should feel right now. No, just kidding. Hierarchy is dead. It's totally fine. Kerry, do you want to start us off? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Hey everyone, Kerry Benson. I work at Kantar. I started working there about 3.5 years ago, and I was on the agency side before that for too many years to mention. But the thing I've been doing at Kantar has been launching AI solutions to measure creative, and it's really been an interesting ride. Coming from an agency, really never, I know agencies don't really like to use research to measure creative because ideas are original and you don't want to have to compromise. But what has been really fascinating is how AI has been able to help push creativity. So push sound, push music tracks, push different versions of things, and that's been a really interesting way to use it in order to kind of sell it into clients as well as just making sure that it's really working. So good to be here.
Everyone clap? Yes? Excited. Very good. Very. Then Dan.
I used to have a mic.
Mike, guys, come on.
Now I have a mic. Okay, hi everyone. Solange Claudio. I am the president of formerly known as an agency within the Publicis Group network. We like data, actually, and insights, and we consider ourselves a data-led creative agency that is primarily focused on breaking down the sort of silos of the funnel. While we are absolute experts in social and CRM and digital, you name it, creative, concepting, all that good stuff, what we like to talk about a lot is how those silos and sort of swim lanes that existed in the past can now actually not just be broken down, but the best of all those components can be leveraged to really drive consumer connectivity in a different way. So we like to sort of break the mold. That's a big part of what we like to do. So obviously AI is one of the areas that we're starting to really investigate and experiment in, and are encouraging our clients to do the same thing safely. And we're excited to be here. I'm excited to be here, and thank you so much for having us.
Pleasure. Yes, give us some love.
All right, so how many of you know Free the Work? All right, appreciate that. Well, for those who don't know Free the Work, we're a nonprofit. We focus on underrepresented communities behind the camera. So in the production, so everything from producer, director, actor, composer, galore. We do this globally. We have over 16,000 creators globally, 181 countries. We have over 10,000 hirers. And we essentially try to change systems. We know that everybody out there does want change. They are trying to work towards change, at least the majority of people are. And so we're here to try to help shift systems and kind of make that better easier for everyone. So I'm stoked to be on this panel because AI, anytime a new technology or a new thing comes in, it's going to change the system, and that's actually a great opportunity to actually shift things to a more ethical and more equitable place. So that is why I am excited to be here.
Let's hear it for that. I'm very excited for you to be here.
I'm Mike Dobell, co-founder at Jam3. So 10 and a half years ago, Flash Shop in Toronto. And 2 years ago, our whole mandate was connecting people with technology and closing that gap, creating new services along the way. And a couple of years ago, we merged with Media.Monks, a new era tech services, content, media, and data firm under a single P&L. And that's today I've been working as the Chief Innovation Officer, so helping brands onboard innovation into the things that they do.
Yes. There's some very cool projects that all these people are going to tell you about. Are we stoked?
Yeah!
Yeah?
Yeah!
God, I really feel like a hype woman. It's kind of the best job there is. All right, welcome to everyone who just joined us. We're gonna have a really great conversation today. To start off, I really want to hear how have you guys been using AI to develop and work on, test your creative? We can go down the line.
Oh, they're good.
We're friends.
All right. Okay. Anyways,
We've made it. We're here. How are you using AI?
yeah. So AI is okay, obviously with research and measurement and trying to get insights. What AI can do is shortcut a lot of the different more tactical tasks of the certain types of research. So I'll talk about what we have. We have this product called Link AI, and Link is the typical Kantar survey about measuring ads, making sure they're breaking through, making sure they're driving persuasion or long-term brand equity. And we've taken all that data from surveys over the years, and most recently we update it on a very regular basis now, the AI is trained to measure creative. And so you can upload a video instead of waiting a few days to get results back. You can upload a video and get results in 15 minutes. So what that means for creative, I think the best application for creative is that you can use it iteratively. So you can say, in fact, we worked with Buzick before for one of their big clients, and we've been able to narrow down animatics, different concepts, and then test different versions. And okay, the branding is really low. What's going on here? How can we get that branding up? Work with the agency directly on it, and then optimize in a good way, in a way that you're just looking at, okay, what's going on here? Well, what if we made these changes? Let's test it again. What if we made these changes? Let's test it again. It's not about testing. It's just really about how can this work a little bit more effectively. So that's one way we've used it. And then we've also used it mainly to really get more aggregated, holistic insights across campaigns, and then be able to really then take the best practices and develop creative guidance from that. And that's the way I really like that. It's more of a holistic kind of direction.
Amazing, like data aggregation, studying information. That's awesome. Solange.
So the first thing I want to talk about is just separating out the big hype components from what we all have already been doing for a very long time. Technology has enabled us to automate the work that we do for a while, right? In fact, I would say that the benefit of when I got into the industry, unfortunately a couple of decades ago for me, as I continue to gracefully age, not so.
Fortunately for us.
Yeah, was the technology wave, right? The World Wide Web. That's when I came on board, really learning and understanding how technology could enable us to connect with consumers differently, the massive shift in consumer behaviors that came from that, and then the mobile revolution that happened after that. So from that perspective, we have been slowly moving on this path. This should not be a surprise. So do we use machine learning? Do we use algorithms? Do we use programmatic? Of course we do. We use it for a lot of things. We do a tremendous amount of creative optimization, from subject line testing to imagery testing to geolocation work and things of that nature. I got the wonderful benefit of being in social, digital, and CRM, so I get to do this with data and creativity the entire time. What's the difference today? The difference today is that we added this keyword or the capability that really came about is generative, right? So AI can now create on our behalf. And that is a big difference. Not only can it not create, but it doesn't require a programming language, it just requires English. So we have a radical opportunity in front of us in terms of what we could potentially do and the kind of scale that our strategic thinking and creativity can bring to bear in the work that we do. Because now we could hypothetically have a creative lead who no longer needs a studio team, a video team, designer team, extra copywriters, right? This person could hypothetically come up with an idea and leverage AI tools, a suite of tools, just so that we're clear. It is a really wide array of tools and availability. If anybody knows the Lumascapes, we're gonna have one for this in every facet that you can imagine. There'll be one for tech, one for media, one for data, one for like creativity, there'll be one for everything. Because that's what's, again, so amazing about this version. It's the generative aspect of it. And this person can then go in and say, I have this big challenge. I need to drive against a new acquisition audience for my client, a target audience that we have never had the funding to approach before, right? And now I don't have to say there's no return on investment there, right? Because the technology is enabling our ideas to actually bring forth those assets that are required to reach that consumer with something that's personal. So that's what's exciting for me, that we are going to be able to get those opportunities to be able to do that. And so now here's what we can finally do. You can finally talk to me, the Latina mom who has 3 girls in very various stages of her life, who's a working mom, who really cares about experiences and travels, but probably doesn't care about what car she drives. You can now customize your messages to me specifically on all those dynamics and different variables of who I am. And so it's about to get really amazing in terms of how we can really have personal two-way relationships between a brand and a consumer that we simply were never able to do. A lot of times people would call that loyalty or CRM. I just call that advertising because that's the opportunities that AI is bringing about.
I'm gonna buy so much more stuff on Instagram. So much.
That algorithm's good.
I know. Thank you.
So basically, what are we doing with AI? I think it comes in twofolds. Our community, because they are creators behind the camera, I think it happens on a level, many different levels. I think, treatments for ad agencies generally cost around $10,000. I think they're using AI to kind of help rebuild treatments and work with that. I think writers are actually using it for different scenarios. But they're not necessarily using that as the actual bit of writing that they have. They're just doing it as brainstorming. A lot of them are finding ways to do it. A lot of our other creators are wanting to see their scripts, what it might visually look like, and they have to use that for pitches. And so they're finding different ways to use AI in that sense. I would say how free the work is using AI. I would say personally, as a worker, I'm using it almost every day to look, I'm very straightforward. I have a lot of empathy, but I'm very straightforward. But I also don't have a ton of patience to have to explain racism. So I use generally ChatGPT
No one does.
very consciously and kindly remind people and get them to understand history. So sometimes I use ChatGPT for a lot of my emails to gently explain kindly to someone why that's a homophobic statement.
The racism translator.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my personal use for it. But then I think for Free the Work, we're sort of, I would say we're a little bit more like a watchdog. So we're really looking for the ethical elements. We're really looking at the articles that are coming out. We're looking at Levi's using AI diverse models. We're kind of looking at those levels and saying, is that ethical? Does that make sense? Are you just fucking over more people? Like all of those sorts of things. And we're not here to come and, PR back and scream at you and say you're a terrible human and you're a terrible company. We're really here to say, hey, let's have critical thinking put back into this. We have AI, we have these tools, but they're not going to be critically thinking for us. They're not ethical. So for us, it's like, how do we bring back the ethical and the empathy back into these processes? And that's where and how we're really using it on a daily basis.
This is great. Yeah.
That is great.
That's great. It just feels good to hear, that it's happening. Anyway, this is great. Yeah.
So with Media.Monks, we've developed essentially 4 service offerings around AI. The first, which is kind of close to my heart, is the development of new services. That's things like creating a sign language avatar to do translation for television programming. So that's really exciting stuff. That's also, the brand campaign stuff like doing a deep fake for the weekend and stuff like that. So that's really cool stuff, and that's a whole sort of service line of like using these tools to create new experiences on new services. Our content at scale pipeline, or our synthetic studio, is probably one of the most advanced out there, and we're applying that right now in really, really interesting ways. But as far as doing it right, it's really about those work sessions where we have representation at the table while we develop how to integrate our synthetic studio into existing content supply chains. So you gotta have the right people there to help train the data sets in a way that is gonna improve those foundational data sets. Like, none of the agencies are making foundational models. Like, that's just not happening, and there's an issue with the training data. So it's about what we can do on top of that, and the processes and checkpoints and quality assurance that we're doing along the way that helps with that. The third product that we're offering is a data foundations. That's really helping to build the bottom of the stack that allows you to do those AI implementations in the first place. And then the final area that we're really working hard at is a derivative of what was called media mix modeling at one time. It's a product called Clarity, which uses media mix modeling as one of the data sources for growth planning generally. So it's pulling in other growth and sales data that helps the C-suite kind of reimagine different pathways to growth. And implementing that properly, same sort of thing. You got to have the right people at the table to make those adjustments to make sure you're representing right.
Yeah, round of applause. That was great. They're doing some cool stuff. So it all sounds great, super peachy. I consult with companies all the time that want to integrate AI and new technology into their workflows, and there's this real excitement and energy around, like, let's do everything AI, fire everyone, automate it all. But hold on, let's not do that. What are the challenges? What are the limitations? What are some of the things that you found in your process of implementing these new tools, playing with them, figuring out how to integrate them into your processes? What are the lessons you've learned in that process? And I'm going to make this popcorn so we can make it a little bit more conversational. So yeah, challenges, problems, issues, why you shouldn't fire your entire team yet.
Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. Okay, we'll jump off from here. Anyone who wants to go.
I think it just goes back to the critical thinking element. And I think that also you just need more opinions in the room, because a lot of people, you'll make something and you're not going to realize where the red flags are or where things might be a little bit strange because you're all the same, or you're just, in your excitement. And I think having more voices and more people in the room, especially from all different backgrounds, is really going to keep you from that cancel moment. And I just, honestly, again, it's regenerative. Most of the internet is garbage, so it's regenerated garbage. So
No offense.
no offense. But it's just like how many ideas out there that are not good, And so you're now getting part of that. And so I still think there's a certain level of curation, certain level of taste, and a certain level of creativity that's always going to be there. And then lastly, I love that meme that's been going around, where it's basically the client would have to know exactly what they want for us to get rid of AI, for us to only use AI. Because it is true. It's like the client would need to know exactly what you need. And I think that's how people are going to get trained. I think they're going to get trained on, okay, you're using these tools. How good are you at using them and curating the tool itself? I think that's going to become a skill in itself.
Okay, so let's go through a social post.
Take me through.
Oh my God.
Take me through it.
So let's say it's part of organic content, so you already have structure against the concept and what you're planning to do for the month, right? So the client knows what they want, right?
They know exactly what they want. They can describe it in perfect detail.
So they know exactly how they're going to hit
And
that
all the
product.
colors.
Let's
Ooh.
give it even more specific. It's Mother's Day weekend coming up. It's May. Okay, we have to set it up, right? So let's say you're
marketing to you.
Yeah, and they're marketing to me, and let's say you've got 3 platforms you have to hit, and it's just organic social, right? So I'm going to keep it simple for you, because I'm not asking you to actually connect it to your media, right? I'm saying organic, so you're not going to go paid. So already I've got a couple of things here that I'm trying to simplify the situation. But we have to go from maybe creative presentations. We might still be doing some segmentation of audiences. We're still going to be going through the full creative development process. We might actually, typically in social, we would want to have some sort of call to action, so we would want to be able to connect somehow. And we might be in a place where this is definitely a product. So you want to sell something. So guess what? That social post needs to somehow connect back to something, right? A site. Maybe you decide to send it to multiple different locations. Maybe it's not your site. Maybe you're sending it to Walmart, right? And so you have to figure out what your commerce, your retail commerce connectivity is going to be. Even if one day in the far future, AI could handle every single one of those steps, okay? Inclusive of, by the way, the creative review process. Your boss's boss and your boss's boss, as well as the CEO, sometimes needs to see it before it gets approved. And don't forget about the legal reviews, because we always have to go through those regardless of real-time content.
Those are the favorite.
Oh, those are the best ones, right? Even if we figure out how to automate every single step within that, right? Someone still has to push a button to say it's time. Or maybe potentially put a prompt and say, hey, Mother's Day is coming within 2 weeks of that time period. Please make sure you launch a series teaser campaign that then leads to blah, 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 right? By the way, please include the analytics for tracking. So again, this is not a simple task to just say that AI is going to come in and replace all of us, right? Like there is a lot that goes into the plumbing, the city lights, the traffic lights, the city buildings. There's a reason why city planning and building things out. By the way, city is just part of the state, which could be part of the country, which could be part of the world, right? Like there's a lot of complexity that goes into that. And guess who your expert is at helping you guide you through that complexity, although we make it simple all the time? Who? It'd be us, the agency people. Stop. Yes, I know. With our partnerships with AdTech and MarTech and all of the folks who bring it together, by the way, as well as our clients, because we have IT partners, and we do have legal partners, and we do also have regulatory partners in certain industries where it's absolutely critical for regulatory to be involved. Again, this is not a simple task. We are an industry for a reason, right? What AI will enable us to do, though, is to improve the work that we do and potentially reach more audiences in a more consistent and direct way, in which we have not been able to do because of the complexities of what it takes to get a message out into the marketplace. So that's the opportunity.
Yes. Great. I love that journey. If you want to talk to some challenges, I also, it sort of taught, time is relative. I don't know about you. Do you want to take this one?
Well, I would just say one thing about AI is that it can only work with what's already out there. So how do we make it so that it's going to represent communities that should be represented, that may not be historical data? So how do you, AI is only as good as the data that is feeding it. And so how do we get better at feeding it better data? And so, it requires refreshing the model, it requires rebuilding the model, it requires making sure that the data that's being fed into it represents what you want, what should be represented versus what has to be represented. So that's just one thing. And then the other thing we talked about earlier was, how can AI help provide insights across campaigns and making sure that campaigns are representing different groups. And that's something that you can actually do today by tagging ads and then making sure, like tagging whatever your agenda is. Let's tag it for LGBTQ plus, and then look at how many ads are reaching these certain, certain tabs.
The intersectionality is going to have to get so much more specific, which is where I think both of you come in, because we have to, it has to get, I can tell you, like every big brand we work with is working so hard to get even harder and tighter on the intersectionality of audiences and reach them.
Right. Well, I'm going to ask a question even deeper into that, and you can sort of bring this all together, which is when it comes to developing more inclusive advertising for folks who identify as LGBTQ+, who identify in all of these other ways, the intersections, all of these things that are so specific. You're also a third culture kid. You're also this. You're also, add on these different identifiers. What do marketers need to consider? What do folks who are making these kinds of things need to consider and pinpoint while they're making these different ads and campaigns? Do you want to jump on this?
Okay.
You're ready.
Yeah, no, I think that the move from moving from demographics to intersectionality, when you are starting to think about doing content at hyperscale and hyper-personalization, is it's super critical, right? So developing the policies to make sure that you've got the right people at the table at each step in the in the service design process. So like, and what I mean by that is like you're rolling out a totally new content supply chain. So you're doing that, you should be doing that as an intentional service design. And when you're going through that process, it's super important that every single stage in that service that you're designing, you're looking at who's at the table and what are we doing to combat the inherent bias at each of those phases. So, you know, ending with quality assurance, but like what's that briefing process look like and what's happening in the versioning stage. I mean, there's so many examples where good intentions and representation are badly executed and badly received. So, you know, the who's looking at it matters because, you know, everyone can only quality assure something from their own bias. So, I don't know if it makes sense.
Making the best fondue pot ever.
Well, and I would take it back to the beginning, actually, to the research. Because I would say just as we have shortchanged having diverse advertising and diverse creative and things of that nature, we've also shortchanged the ability to get insights on communities that are in the intersectionality space, right? So I would say that advertising, my own industry, doesn't actually know me that well. They know a stereotypical aspect of who I am.
I live in a small town, I get, you know, shitty ads and
They know you want that truck.
Right,
yeah,
they know.
Cabela's all the time, right?
Right. So there is this, you know, we are, when we do demographics, right, we're very singular in that approach, right? And it's very almost two-dimensional. If you had 3 or 4 dimensions to what a person would be, you really have to go understand. So the first thing we need to do is sort of do more research, right? Really understand how we're going to scale an understanding of people, consumers, and then from there, the behaviors, then how we scale against that, to bring that to bear and how we actually communicate with them, clean up our data because it is biased, clean up the inputs that are biased, etc. I think there's a lot of work actually to be done to get this right, but we know where we got it wrong, so we know where we can start.
Beautiful. There's actually somebody, his name's Michael Runningwolf, and he's doing a lot of work. He's doing amazing work around sort of bringing more data around indigenous populations and native populations, and he is sort of an intersection of a few different populations. And one of the things he told me, I was sort of interviewing him for a documentary I was working on, and he said, what I want more than anything is that a Lakota kid, a Lakota teenager can go to ChatGPT, ask it about like who am I, and it will give him an honest and authentic response that he sees himself reflected in, and isn't giving him a story that he actually doesn't know that story from his grandmother because he no longer speaks Lakota, but he can sort of get an authentic representation of that from the model. It's really important.
I'm just gonna ask, I know we have to go, we're getting the signals. I just want to ask the audience one question. Would it matter to you, would you want to know that you're watching AI models in a commercial or in a print ad? Would you want to know that?
Great question.
Would it matter? Like, would you want to be notified, something like cigarette warnings?
Raise your
Would you
hand.
want to
Don't
be
be shy.
notified if it's an AI model, or it doesn't matter to you?
Yeah.
Raise your hand if yes.
Interesting.
All right.
Okay, thank you. That's my research. Thank you.
This is great. Thank you guys so much for listening. Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you all so much. And thank you both. Thank you.